Coming up on this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society, we originally meant to release this episode in April. It's dangerous to go alone, so the Nintendo Cartridge Society goes with you. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, and I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Mark Mitchell. We've got a good show for you today. We are going to be talking about the news from the week, including teases for Sonic's 30th anniversary and more details about the Super Mario 3D All-Stars collection. And then on Thursday, we're going to be ranking all the final Bowser fights. But in the meantime, Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I cut my own hair this morning, like the top of it.
This is self-administered.
This
what
is
I'm looking at right now.
self-administered. Yeah, my husband
Well
is
done,
always
well done.
thank you. My husband has helped me like cut the sides. But then I have taken it upon myself to cut the top. This is only the second time since I guess like March that I've cut like the top of my hair, and the first time it went like really smoothly. It was absolutely beginner's luck. And so the second time I went in with like too much confidence.
Oh,
and
no, Mark.
I think I ended in an okay place, but like the journey there was a struggle.
I think you also that you're just starting from like a lower point, right? Because when the first time you cut your own hair or the top of your hair, you're starting with like the original like background was laid by a professional.
That's
at some point.
a really good point.
And so now this is the multiplicity thing. This is the fourth clone in multiplicity. That's what your hair is right now. It's a copy of a copy.
That it works okay because I'm like telecommuting and like we're doing this through FaceTime, and so it's okay for my hair to look just okay because in the low fidelity of web cameras, it looks passable. I do think that in real life, it would be scary. It would not be like good.
Sure. I mean, it wouldn't be the only thing that's scary, though. We're living under the eye of Sauron right now. The sun is bright red, and it peers through the horrible dark clouds. It's a weird time in Southern California.
Totally.
But if you want to have your own weird time, you can with my copy of Sonic Forces. All you got to do, if you would like to borrow my copy of Sonic Forces for the Nintendo Switch, is email us at Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. And give us a mailing address, and we send it to you. You play it and have a great time. If you'd like to have a terrible time, you are allowed. Again, as far as this program is concerned, there are no cops. You can do whatever you want. Something else that we need you to email us about, Mario memories. We are going to be celebrating Mario's 35th anniversary next month. Because that's when we choose to celebrate it. And honestly, we're sort of starting it right now, right? Like this week, we're doing a Mario episode. We're doing a whole month of Mario episodes, concluding with an episode of all of our favorite Mario memories. I know I've got my favorite Mario memories. I assume Mark has his, but we need to collect all of yours. So you can write that up into an email and send it to us, Nintendo Cartridge Society at gmail.com. Thank you so much to Christian, to Matthew, to Pete, and to Becca already for sending them to us. You are everyone else who hasn't sent one in. These people are showing you up. They are sending in good memories that I'm excited to read and excited to talk about. So get in there. We all have experience with Mario, so let's all do it together. Mark, we got an email from a listener from Mark.
Strong name. I'm already into it.
Right? Yeah, very good. The email reads plus button / D-pad. Hi guys, just a quick message to say that Mark, your guess on the naming of the plus pad for the D-pad on the new Super Mario Brothers Game & Watch was spot on. It was originally called the plus button, not plus pad though. So they called it plus pad in the direct. So that's what they're calling it here. I have attached a PDF of the original Donkey Kong Game & Watch instructions, and you'll see that the D-pad was originally called a plus button. Also, that new Game & Watch was sold out here in Australia within a couple of hours after launching. I managed to get one. So, Patrick, I hope you were able to grab one as well. Keep up the great show. Mark, at press time, pre-orders have not gone live in the States. I saw that they were available in Europe, and so now we're just counting down the time. It's gonna happen. Best Buy is supposed to alert me when they are ready. I don't know someone there, but I just signed up for the get notifications. And I'm hopeful that I can get one.
Yeah, and also Mark, thank you so much for writing in. 2 for writing in to let me know that I was right. These are, of course, my favorite type of emails that we get from listeners.
Yeah, and then maybe on the opposite side of that, or maybe in keeping with the theme, we got another email this weekend from Jason and Joseph, listeners of the show. Thank you guys for listening. They put together, they recorded a parody version of Nintendo Cartridge Society of this show. Taking on the roles of Patrick and Mark, and yeah, I don't know what else to say about it, Mark.
They roasted us. They nailed me dead to rights. Joseph, I think, was the one who was Joseph was parodying me, and he nailed me. So it was a lot of fun to listen to. I think we're gonna save it for maybe our 500th episode, which is actually coming up surprisingly soon.
Yeah. Well, it'll be like a
relatively.
Year. Yeah. I mean, we'll get there. But so yeah, it's interesting because it's very flattering. Thank you guys. It's very funny. It's obviously tightly written because there are a lot of our idiosyncrasies that are well observed and then just shamefully executed. And so we'll share that with everyone someday, maybe if we can get over ourselves. Yeah, but I don't know if I want to encourage that or have other you know what I mean?
Well, where I'm at with games right now is that
yes. Whoa. Okay. Well, that's no one's gonna know what that means except for those two guys.
Everybody's gonna know because I say it a lot.
All right. Again, thank you guys. Super weird feeling. All right, Mark, let's get into what we've been playing this week. Dragon Quest Builders 2, the Jumbo Demo. I mentioned this last week, but at that time I had not gotten super far into it. There is a shocking amount of content in this demo.
Is that actually what it's called? Is it called
yes
Jumbo Demo? Wow. All right. Okay.
Jumbo Demo. It's that wasn't me editorializing. It would be weird for me to describe something as jumbo, I think. But man, it is last week I talked about how it was hitting all of the sort of Dragon Quest fulfilling all of those urges, but it is also just such a good construction and building game, which isn't something that I normally partake in. Obviously I have those sort of hooks from Animal Crossing of building a village and building out a town and building relationships with characters. But this is that on blown out to a crazy degree. And so even in really only having access to the one town that I'm building out right now on one island, it feels very limitless and inspiring at the same time. The game has a lot of it doesn't command it does command you to build things, but you have a surprising amount of freedom in how you build those things. So I love it. I'm still not through the demo. I will at some point get all the way through it, but and then get the whole thing.
Did you play the demo for the first game? Have you played
the
first game? Okay, never mind then. I was gonna ask like how like points of
How it
comparison,
compared?
but like I haven't played the second one and you haven't played the first one, so I don't think either of us have a point of reference, like a bridge to cross. So
The positive way to spin that is you played the first one, I'm playing the second one. And then I also spent some time this weekend playing Kid Icarus on the NES Switch Online. Kid Icarus is a game that I talk up the 3D Classics version that's available on the 3DS because it makes it infinitely more playable. The version that's on the NES Switch Online is also playable if you just allow yourself to spam save states and a little rewind functionality. I didn't finish it, but I am in the third world right now. So I completed the first two castle-y dungeon things at the end of the first two worlds, and I'm in the third one. And that game is good. Like I know, and this was my struggle for the majority of my life. That first level is so hard and so punishing and so unforgiving that I just get turned off to it right away. But if you can like kind of muscle your way through that and save scum your way through that, the rewards for the latter 75% of that game are so great.
yeah, I feel like that's what I need to do. This is a game that I've never really played. The only time that I've put any amount of time into it is with the SP version that's on the NES Online.
Sure. Yeah.
Where they basically put you, I think, at the last battle with like all of the like health and
with all the power-ups.
That you could possibly need. And that's pretty much all my experience with it. Because you're right, it has like the reputation of being so incredibly punishing. But now that I can play it with the rewind feature of the NES Online, like, yeah, I should put some time into it.
The game is also obtuse as heck because, like, you're collecting hearts, which are currency, right? Like, you have health but hearts don't refill your health. So, like, that's a thing that I always had like a hard time.
Castlevania was the same way, where like it took me like as a kid, I didn't understand that.
And there is also early in the game, you hit a harp, which turns all the enemies into like a weird red block that you collect. And the red block looks like your health bar, but they don't fill up your health bar either. And those are hammers. You use the hammers in the dungeons at the end of each world to crack open these statues so that and free the sentries inside them. And then the sentries fight alongside you when you get to the boss at the end of that dungeon. So like it's all this stuff that the game doesn't tell you that like I feel like it needs to have a walkthrough guide or something to really just like tell you what's going on.
Yeah, and that is one. And I know that the internet exists, so it's very easy. Like it's possible to Google this stuff very easily. But one thing I do personally miss from the NES Switch Online and the SNES Switch Online is like there's no manuals as like part of it. Like there's no instructions to the game. There's no like this is what the controls do, and that like. The virtual console, it had all that information, and to me that feels like something that's like should be part of these collections.
Yeah, absolutely. And the game will also like drop you into stores, right? So there are stores in the game where you buy items using hearts, and there you'll just see 3 items, and like the game does not do a good job of communicating to you this thing with an F on it is like changes the way your arrows fire, and like this thing that looks like a pencil shows you where you are on the map. There, and nothing looks like what you think it is going to be. You just need to like have a guide with you to like get you started, and then you can like kind of be off to the races on your own. And the dungeons are you have to navigate them circuitously enough that like no guide is really going to. You still have to explore. You still have to double back. So like it's still worth it. Still feels like exploration even with one of those.
So I didn't have a chance to play very much this week, but I've been watching the final speed run from Games Done Quick, which is a speedrunner named Etiquette, Eddaket, and he did a speed run of Pokemon Shield, and then also at the end they meet the incentive for the Isle of Armor expansion as well. And it's like a 5.5 hour speed run, and I have just found it to be very like soothing to, like the last like 20 minutes, 30 minutes before I go to sleep, just to like watch it and just kind of chill out. It's a really cool run. I never finished Pokemon Shield, and so it's fun to see like the end parts of that game. I also think that like Pokemon Sword and Shield, I think is really well art directed. Like I think it's a really good looking game.
Yeah.
And yeah, like speedruns for me are just fun to watch in general, and it has a good like virtual couch in this instance of like commentators who are kind of explaining what's going on. I still have, I think, like an hour and a half or something left in it, but it's been fun to just do it in like bite-sized chunks.
Does it make you want to go back to the game at all, or you feel like this is scratching the itch for you?
This is definitely scratching the itch for me.
So I did play one more Nintendo game this weekend, but I almost feel like expressing the activity is too on brand for me.
I really wish I could guess what it was based on just that alone.
On Saturday, Sarah and I had some beers. We put together a Labo.
Nice.
We did the submarine part of the vehicle set. And while we were drinking and building Labo, we watched Chicago. So it just felt like if this is, if you wanted to like look up in the dictionary Patrick Ellers, those like 3 activities would be listed there.
We've never talked about it on mic. I don't like in a maybe we did it as part of like the Broadway episode, but listeners should know that Patrick and I talk and think about the Cell Block Tango from Chicago like
constantly.
a huge amount of time.
I also the sequence where Velma is trying to convince like Roxy to like start a double act with her while they're both still in prison. And she's like going through the moves, and she's like, she'd go, I'd go, and then she goes, we'd go. The we'd go really makes me laugh. All right, Mark, that's what we've been playing this week. Let's get into the new releases and what we might be playing next week.
So one release I wanted to talk about is coming out on September 10th. It's Vampire the Masquerade Shadows of New York. And Vampire the Masquerade is it's a role-playing game. Like, okay, basically the reason why I'm bringing this up is because it's a series that I'm not at all familiar with. But It's so Dungeons and Dragons, right, is a tabletop role-playing game.
We're taking us way back.
Yeah, exactly. I have to explain my thought process as to why this game is interesting to me. Okay, so Dungeons and Dragons is a tabletop RPG, and then it eventually got turned basically into like video games, like Icewind Dale's, like all that sort of Neverwinter Nights. Takes the very core mechanics of Dungeons and Dragons and turns it into a like video game form.
So arguably even the first Final Fantasy is strongly based on D&D.
So the reason why Vampire the Masquerade, like these games, like are so interesting to me is because the only tabletop role-playing game that I've ever played is Dungeons and Dragons, and Vampire the Masquerade is another like well-known like role-playing game from I think like the early 90s. And I'm curious, Patrick, like, do you have any experience with it? Do you have any experience with like any RPGs, any like role-playing in-person like tabletop role-playing games that is not Dungeons and Dragons?
So yes to both questions. But first, just the general other RPGs that I played. I messed around a lot with GURPS growing up, which I don't actually like in retrospect. It's a clumsy system. But I played the heck out of Palladium games. Which comes in a bunch of different formats, all using the same basic rule set and like character creation stuff. But like there is the like high fantasy world of just like the vanilla Palladium, but then there was also Heroes Unlimited, which was like set in modern day with superheroes. And there was an expansion to that, which is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles and Other Strangeness, which has a bunch of art from Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird, and that's where a lot of Ninja Turtles characters like got their start. Bebop and Rocksteady were originally created for that role-playing game, and when they had to come up with more characters for toys and for the show, they just like rolled them up in that game, and we're like, yeah, okay, that sounds cool.
That's
So let's draw
cool.
them. So that, and then there was also a Robotech, the anime, that Palladium had that license as well. So I played all of those Palladium games. But Vampire the Masquerade in my hometown of Kenosha, Wisconsin, was the like the choice of LARPers in the area. So I had friends that would do live action role playing in the world of Vampire the Masquerade, which is based on the Anne Rice like Interview with the Vampire books.
That makes so much sense.
Also, at one point, I stole a starter deck of the Vampire the Masquerade collectible card game from Rockheads, the comic book store in Kenosha, because I was a punk and I didn't want to pay like $8 for a starter pack. And I think I've probably stolen 4 things in my entire life, and that is one of them. And I think about it a lot.
What's the statute of limitations on that? Or like, did you just confess to a crime, or the police like helicoptering to you right now?
Here's the thing: the store closed down at the end of 2019, so I don't know who can come after me.
And then the other thing that I wanted to mention in new releases, it came out I think last week, but I'm not sure that we mentioned it. The Last Campfire, the new game from Hello Games, the company that also did No Man's Sky, launched on Switch in addition to like pretty much all the other platforms. But it was something that we saw in, oh man, what was it? Was it like one of the was it the Direct Mini from back in March? Was it one of the
Indie World Showcase? Yeah. Yeah, and this game looked cool. I'm having a hard time remembering it right now.
Yeah, it's like a puzzle platformer, and you're like a little thing person, torchbearer dude that
there we go. Okay, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it looks neat. I haven't really like looked at reviews or anything of it, but that was like I think last week when we were doing new releases, we were like, there's nothing. Let's just kind of move on, and that was one that I wanted to call out.
All right. Well, so those are the new releases for this week. Let's close this section out. Now it's time for a regular segment on our show. It's time for 433. In 1952, American composer John Cage wrote a piece called 433, wherein a performer or a group of performers didn't play their instruments for 4 minutes and 33 seconds. For the purposes of this show, our instruments are talking about Nintendo. So, for the duration of one performance, 433, Mark and I will talk about something not at all Nintendo related, thus fulfilling the contract of the piece. Mark, I've laid out here that we are going to talk about Arkham Knights, Batman Arkham Knights, and Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League, 2 topics that we sort of half brought up before they were actually revealed as what they are, back when they were possible Nintendo news items. Now it has been revealed that these are not coming to Switch. So I think we still need to talk about them, and so we're going to do it in 433.
So let's start with Arkham Knights, because for me, just based on the information we have, this is the one that I think is more interesting.
I agree. This is the one that I am very excited about. So the premise of this game, it's just like the previous Batman Arkham games, except there is no Batman in it. Batman is dead to begin with, like Jacob Marley. And you take on the role of either Nightwing, Batgirl, Red Hood, or Robin. And you go on like team up co-op missions or play solo, and just like run around Gotham and beat up bad guys.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It is developed by WB Montreal, who also did Arkham Origins, but it is like related to the like other Arkham games in spirit. But I think like it's interesting the needle they're trying to thread, where it's like it is not in the same universe as the Arkham games, but seems to like kind of also be in the same universe as those Arkham games.
Yeah, well, the Arkham games were also like sort of in the animated series universe, but also kind of not too. I mean, Batman canon is so The other day, my buddy Drew and I were trying to figure out the Robins' relative ages to each other, and just be like, okay, like how old do you think Dick Grayson is? Like at right now, how old do you think Dick Grayson is? I'm asking you.
Yeah, like right now, oh man, I don't know, like mid to late 20s?
Yeah, I mean that we landed at 29, and then how old do you think Jason Todd is?
Oh
Like, how
man.
much younger?
Yeah,
Is
I couldn't
Jason
even
than
even
Dick?
begin to, this feels like like a Gordian knot. Like I don't
Yeah,
know how
yeah.
like none of this can actually exist.
Right. So we had to like work backwards and all that stuff. But I mean the point is the point there is like Batman mythology
I
and
see what you're
chronology
saying.
is messed up. But it is something that I care deeply about. And so the fact that you get to play as all these characters just tickles the heck out of me.
I also like the way it looks. Like I like
Hmm.
it's a little more colorful than, or at least what we've seen is a little more colorful than the other Arkham games. I'm wondering if like Damien either shows up in the story or like it will be a DLC character down the line, like how that'll
Well,
work.
so your read is that Robin is Tim.
That's what I'm assuming, but I guess I could be
Hmm.
wrong.
Well, so he's got that staff, and I guess the staff is kind of a Tim thing and not a Damien thing, right?
That's my assumption.
Okay.
I guess, but you're right.
Yeah.
They haven't said.
Yeah. They have not specified. Yeah. I mean, it seems super cool. How do you feel about the co-op element of it?
It's it'll be interesting to see how the AI works if you're playing solo, but the idea of being able to play this game with like friends is so appealing. Like
The thing,
being Batman together sounds so much fun.
or specifically not being Batman together. Yeah, it's the one thing that, because I've wanted a co-op Arkham game for a long time, but the thing that I could never wrap my head around is how there's so much slow motion in that combat that like I think it'll probably be annoying when something you do triggers slow motion and like feels cool for you, and I'm just like slowly running towards a guy. That might not feel great. I think we should probably move on to Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League now. First of all, Arkham Knights comes out sometime 2021. And then Suicide Squad, Kill the Justice League isn't going to come out until 2022 at the earliest. What did you think of this one?
So it's just it's a movie. I don't know if it was an engine or just
Sure,
like a CG. I don't really have an opinion. I don't really like the Suicide Squad. It doesn't, like, that concept doesn't really do anything for me. Those characters don't really do anything for me. But I am interested to see what Rocksteady ends up doing with it.
I'm not gonna say that I'm having like like I'm very interested in this concept, but the sort of like DC funny but also like dark and violent at the same time, like this aesthetic is sort of like kind of getting its hooks in me. Like I've started watching Doom Patrol because it's on HBO Max now, and I've been watching the Harley Quinn animated series.
I've heard that's really funny,
and it is. It's really funny, and like just embraces this like super over the top violence in like a fun way. And if this can be more of that, I may be really into it.
Ooh, we're just out of time when I was going to ask you if that getting its hooks in you rolled over to the Zack Snyder's Justice League, but a topic for another time.
I mean, I don't know if Zack Snyder has. The humor is an important part of that for me. Is what I was driving to. Okay, we were accompanied today by an ensemble at the Musical Instrument Museum in Phoenix. Mark, let's get into the news.
So last week you got news of the Mario 35th anniversary celebration that's going to be going on basically starting now through the end of March next year. And, I guess the question, if it is even a question at this point, was like, were we supposed to get this 35th anniversary news earlier? And the answer is seemingly very apparently yes. Like, yes. Absolutely.
It also just like sort of intuitively feels like yes, right? Like, yeah, of course Nintendo wasn't wasn't going into this year planning to be quiet for 6 months.
Right. Yeah, that's true. But we potentially have some evidence that is the case. The Super Mario Maker 2 page on the Mario 35th anniversary website had a post announcing the new Ninja speedrun, and a chance for players to win a commemorative medal by competing in the challenge. The event's date in like the fine print at the bottom was listed from April 14th, 2020 to April 21st, 2020.
Which is so long ago at this point. And we're not even to like the point in our timeline. I'm assuming divergent timelines here. Because in our world, that event is not happening until November.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's also interesting that like rumors of this 3D All-Stars, like this 3D collection, began to surface like at the end of March, which which means like I wonder how close we were to an announcement before they kind of like stalled it.
Yeah, that is interesting.
So that whole like website is down now. But it's also interesting that like the specific challenge event was not listed alongside the Ninja level in last week's direct. So it seems like that challenge, like that part of it is not happening anymore.
Or is something that they're going to announce later. Like I don't think we're totally done with Mario 35th anniversary like announcements and products. Like I think there's still going to be little stuff like this revealed throughout the course of this.
That's a good point. So you're saying like, oh, the Ninja stuff in Super Mario Maker 2 isn't happening until November, so maybe we'll hear about it like weeks from now. Yeah, that does make a lot of sense. Speaking of Super Mario Maker 2, this weekend Nintendo announced that the 20 millionth player created course was uploaded to the game. So still just chugging along.
That is a lot of autoplay music levels.
Of course, as part of the 35th anniversary celebration, we're getting Super Mario 3D All-Stars next week. I can't believe it's next week. Very excited for this. In the announcement, Nintendo didn't really talk about like specific enhancements to the game other than they mentioned Sunshine being able to be played in widescreen. But GameXplain, the YouTube channel, compared the original games to footage of the games running in 3D All-Stars. And it's clear that Nintendo has done some work to the games. They've updated the textures in Mario 64. And the speculation is that they are using like the original archived like source files. So the game retains its look. It's just like sharper running in HD. And then they've also remastered the cutscenes in Sunshine and Galaxy. So these aren't straight ports, and it'll be interesting to see like once we get the full games release, like what other work has potentially been done.
Yeah, it's been really interesting to see the sort of like side-by-side comparisons, to just see what like a higher resolution for those games looks like. Like, because in your memory it's not as fuzzy as it almost certainly is. So just seeing all of that stuff in kind of sharper relief is very interesting. There was something I saw that the Super Mario Sunshine you can't play it with GameCube controllers, even though there's the GameCube controller adapter for use with Smash Brothers.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
that's interesting. I'm really excited for this. I'm excited for you to be able to play Sunshine.
Me too.
I mean, I haven't played it for like 15 years, but my memory of it, I remember really enjoying that game. And also, it's really pretty. Like the water effects in that game are like amazing, even now. So I'm excited to like play all of these again.
Do you, before we move on to the next topic, do you have a plan when that game comes out? Like, do you know what you're going to tackle in what order?
I have really been struggling with this because I want to play all three for different reasons. I think I'm going to do release order. That is my plan.
Me too.
Now.
Me too. That's what I'm going to
start with
do.
64. I also think it's been the longest since I've played 64. So is that true? I think that is true. The last time I played a version of that game was the DS version.
Ugh, barely counts.
The controls are rough.
They're an abomination. They're real bad.
So GameXplain also compared the original version of Mario 3D World, which is coming in February, and the remaster, and they estimate that the Switch version of the game is running faster. In fact, they think that it might be running up to 30% faster, which seems like a lot.
Yeah, so it is a lot, and what that comes down to is mostly seeing the characters run faster, which is a thing about the original Super Mario 3D World is that everyone does feel a little bit sluggish, like Toad really being the only exception, and it seems like they just cranked up the speed on this one by like you say 20 or 30%, which I think is just good for it. Like it's not that I'm in favor of a game getting, shortened, but yeah, I think faster will actually suit the game.
GameXplain also mentioned a Mario Odyssey-esque dive being added to the game.
I looked for that, and I did not see this Mario Odyssey-esque dive. There's a moment like when the Game Explain guy is showing it, or when he says it, they're showing like a cat Mario doing like the cat dive, but that's in the original game and is also only available with the cat suit. So I don't know if that's real.
Yeah, that's
but
interesting.
It might be.
And they also mentioned a modified camera.
Yeah, which is a little bit more evident. The camera seems a little bit tighter, a little bit more dynamic. But kind of a small thing.
Oh, speaking of the Super Mario 3D World. So when we were talking about like was this was the 35th anniversary celebration supposed to be announced like in March or April? The rumors kind of online are saying that Nintendo's lineup for the year was originally something like Pikmin 3 was supposed to come out like in like a spring game, so like maybe in March.
Sure.
And then the 3D All-Stars remaster maybe around the same time it's coming out now. But that Super Mario 3D World was supposed to come out this year as well, not next year. And so, it seems like when they delayed, everything got pushed back. So, like last week I was really hyped, that there's going to be like a big holiday game coming. Maybe that's not the case. Maybe I'm still allowing myself to be hyped because that's I did 1 week really well of keeping my expectations dampened, but now it's like
and
the
now
fire's
throw it
been
out the
lit.
window, man.
Exactly. I think like kind of with the Mario 35th anniversary announcement, there were some like changes to the Switch eShop that are small but nice. One, like the eShop right now has a Mario 35th anniversary theme.
It's red.
Yeah, and one of the changes is that there's now like 64-bit Mario running as the loading indicator instead of just like a spinner. It's really cute.
I really like that, and it feels so. Nintendo normally when they want to do like a Mario for a loading thing, it's 8-bit Mario, right?
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
They trot out that original Super Mario Brothers Mario all the time, and it's awesome to see the Mario 64 Mario just kind of jogging alongside while the page loads.
Yeah, it's fun to me that like it is Mario's 35th anniversary, but kind of like I guess there is a lot of stuff that's reflecting on like the original game, like the Game & Watch and this Super Mario 35. But I like that like kind of the marquee release is 3D Mario. It's fun to get see like the 64-bit Mario kind of get his due because you don't see that like character front and center, that version of Mario front and center that often.
It's also so funny to think of him as like that version of that character because he's not the same Mario that we have right now, right?
Right.
Like his proportions are different. Obviously, he's like way blockier. But like, yeah, there's something about that specific Mario that I'm like, he only exists in that game, and I love him. I like him. I want to see him more.
Some other changes in the eShop is you can now cancel digital pre-orders. It's like the way pre-orders work is different now, and it just makes way more sense for everybody. So basically previously pre-orders were really like preloads. Like the only time you could pre-order a game on the eShop was when it was available for you to like start downloading it onto your system. And now it's not just preloading, now it's like pre-ordering. So you can pre-order a game. Oh, sorry. Previously also when you like bought it, when you started downloading it, like you bought it, you paid for it
you
then.
were charged. Yeah.
So now you can pre-order a game like Super Mario 3D World is up for pre-order right now, but you can pre-order it, but you don't get charged for the game until at most 1 week out from release. So Nintendo says that they'll charge people like 1 week out from release, and then that's also when the game will preload.
Which sort of just brings them in line with like other digital stores and pre-order policies, but good for them to catch up.
There's also now an indicator like on the game tiles that tells you how long a game's sale will last. So you'll see the sale price and it says something like 6 days remaining or 14 hours remaining. Before you could always like find that information, but it wasn't front and center.
Yeah, you got to dig.
It's such like a nice change.
Yeah, to just be like, oh shoot, I should buy that. It's so smart. Obviously, it's a good like motivator for like, hey, this sale price is going away tomorrow. Yeah, of course that's gonna make me buy it.
Yeah. But we're all hyped on celebrating Mario's 35th anniversary. But Sega is gearing up to celebrate Sonic the Hedgehog's 30th anniversary in 2021. The website Tales Channel spotted a Sonic ad in the licensing sourcebook Europe that teased, quote, 30th anniversary 2021, a year of celebration, new games, digital content, events, major announcements, and a tailored licensing program.
Yeah, so this isn't just like an announcement from like Sega, the software developer. It is a sort of statement of purpose from Sega, the Sonic the Hedgehog license holder. So major announcements could be a new movie or like a comic book series or a TV show or something. But obviously Sonic fans are abuzz with the idea that we are going to get some sort of new big Sonic thing. Was it just like this last year that there was, or this year, that there was going to be a Sonic panel at South by Southwest, and of course that got canceled with everything else, where they were like kind of promising something big. So I think that Sega's probably in the same boat as Nintendo was, where they're like, okay, well, we're just going to hold these announcements until it makes more sense, and are getting it lined up with an anniversary. It's been a little bit since we've seen a Sonic game.
Yeah, the last like release was Sonic Forces in November 2017, and yeah, the games are going to be released next year. It'll be interesting to see if we get like some sort of announcement before that.
Right. Do you think it is possible that that Sega could do a Sonic 3D All Stars?
Ooh, yes, I was going to say, do people like those games enough? But the answer is yeah, of course, yes, they absolutely 100% could. I personally am hopeful for like a Sonic Mania 2, but but also a little like hesitant because I don't think the team or like that put together the first game are like together anymore. And so it would probably be put together by a different team, which doesn't mean it wouldn't be bad. But that first Sonic Mania game was so much fun.
It's so good. I wonder if they could do a Sonic 3D Mania. Like, I wonder if that makes sense. That they could do a game like Sonic Mania, but instead of using, Sonic 2 as the base, using like Sonic.
Like Adventures or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a really interesting idea. And then just like taking the pieces that people liked from the 3D games and kind of making one like mega game.
Yeah, try that, someone. Sega, I guess.
More leaks coming out of that like that Giga leak that has been feeding the news cycle for months now at this point. So the documents that were released maybe yesterday showed that Nintendo at one time considered a more traditional follow-up to the GameCube that would have directly competed with the HD specs of the PlayStation 3 and Xbox 360.
Okay. So would I don't know. This feels like the kind of thing that I'm sure there's someone that's like, oh, I wish they had done that. But I am, I that is not me. At the time, like before the Wii was announced, I was falling out of video games. Like I was still playing like the odd game on GameCube or my PlayStation 2, but like there was something about like it just wasn't. Games didn't feel to me like they were trying to be fun or that they were being anything but like you know, running down dark hallways and shooting people with guns. And Nintendo and the Wii, for me, were such a release from that. And like it would have bummed me out if, that generation of Nintendo had just been like everyone else.
Yeah, it's also interesting that like the presentation that leaked was it's like a PowerPoint presentation, and it's seemingly from ATI, which is like the graphics chip um creator that Nintendo paired with on, and they might have paired with them before on like the GameCube and stuff, but they ended up going with them on the Wii, and now they're part of AMD. But the part that's not clear to me is like who put this proposal together. Like, was it a proposal that
Yeah,
from like
interesting.
ATI on being like, this is like a route we've talked about pursuing, or like we've talked together about pursuing. But yeah, obviously they didn't go down this route, and I agree with you that it was for the better. The other thing that leaked out of this is that there was also a proposal for a portable GameCube with a dock that connected to your TV, and then like the dock had GameCube controller ports, so you could plop it in there and then plug your controllers in. Sounds, like reminiscent of what we got with the Wii U and eventually with the Switch. It's just interesting to see that like some version of that idea has been percolating ever since the GameCube, and also maybe that's why the GameCube had a handle.
Yeah, I was gonna say I don't mean to embarrass you, Mark, but the original GameCube was portable. It had a handle.
Famously, that's when the
Yeah.
at the Switch reveal, when they're talking about the Switch is taking something from like every console, and they're like, and here's like the GameCube had a handle on it for portability.
Ooh. Ooh, that's a tough sell. Especially when the GameCube was the first Nintendo controller to have dual analog sticks.
First and only, right?
I mean, no,
Oh, no,
I
no,
mean,
sorry. Dual analog sticks. You're right. I was thinking the
yeah.
analog triggers.
Oh, yes, yes. First and only. Actually, wait a minute. The nunchuck, there's the Z button on there, but the C button, isn't that analog? Isn't that like pressure sensitive?
I don't remember. Somebody tell us. I don't think so, but
I mean, I've got one in my linen closet over here, but I'm not gonna check.
maybe afterwards. Maybe afterwards.
Maybe after. Maybe after.
A couple of weeks ago, Pikmin 3 Deluxe was announced for Switch coming this October. And at that time of the announcement, the original Pikmin 3 release was quietly removed from the Wii U eShop. But it's back now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's still at the Nintendo Select's price. So if you have a Wii U and you don't want to pay $60 for the Pikmin 3 Deluxe on Switch, you can now get it again on the Wii U eShop for $20.
And of course, that won't have any of the like downloadable content that you have to pay extra for. That will, of course, be included in the Switch release.
So interestingly, I think the only game that's left that has had a port from Wii U to Switch that is not currently available on the Wii U eShop is Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. But all the other ones
Yeah.
like Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, New Super Mario Bros. U, Super Mario 3D World, like are all still available.
Well, I mean that. I wonder if that's simply a pricing thing because Tropical Freeze, for whatever reason, is $50
Hmm.
on the Wii U. So I wonder if they want to just if they saw like those competing price points in the marketplace being like too big of a spread. But like some of these other Wii U games must be Nintendo Selects at either the $40 or $20 price point. So it's interesting that they're I don't know. The whole thing seems dumb. Like no one has a Wii U. Like let people who have the Wii U, buy the thing for $10 cheaper. and then realize that they want to play it on the go and then buy it on Switch. Like, come on.
It's also interesting to me. I mean, like you said, there is seemingly no rhyme or reason that we can discern. But it's interesting to me that we saw when they announced Pikmin 3 Deluxe that Pikmin 3 was quietly delisted,
Yeah.
but that the same thing hasn't happened for Super Mario 3D World.
Yeah. Well, and that this Pikmin 3 thing was undone. That,
Right.
someone was like, maybe this isn't a good look, and like, what do we actually get out of it? Is maybe the rationale. And so I wonder if they had originally were like, yep, and then we'll take Super Mario 3D World down as well, and then they're like, oh, if we're gonna undo this, let's just leave that the way it is. Yeah, and also like it just, if the problem with playing Super Mario 3D World and trying to get like a bunch of people to play it together on Switch is that like the first player is going to have that Wii U gamepad, and maybe a second player has a Pro controller. But the second and third player, they're going to be using like a Wii remote or like Wii remote nunchuck. Like, it's not going to be an ideal gameplay situation. So I think if people are trying to like get around the system that way and like play the Wii U version, they're just gonna get frustrated and be like, you know what, we've got 4 controllers we can play our Switch with, so like let's just, I don't know. None of it makes sense that the Wii U sales would take away from the Switch.
Yeah, well, and that's
None
what
of it.
makes me think like maybe that's not actually the reason why
Yeah.
Pikmin 3 Deluxe or Pikmin 3 was delisted from the Wii U eShop. Like maybe it was another reason entirely, because it
Yeah.
doesn't make any sense. The news of Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory coming to Switch may have gotten your hopes up for other Kingdom Hearts games coming to the platform. I think we might have talked about that as well.
Oh yeah.
But please allow this interview with franchise director Tatsuya Nomura to dash those hopes. Nomura told Nintendo enthusiasts that Square Enix did consider porting the existing games to Switch, but that they found that it was, quote, technologically difficult.
Ooh. That, now come on. The first Kingdom Hearts is on PlayStation 2, right?
But maybe that is the problem. Maybe like the engine that they were trying to port, right? Like that the engine, there was no good engine with which to port it.
Yeah.
Because like Dragon Quest 11S Echoes of an Elusive Age Definitive Edition for the Nintendo Switch. And
Thank
to
you.
note, we do have to like denote that it is for the Nintendo Switch now, because the definitive edition has been announced for other platforms. So we just have
Yes.
to be clear about which one we're talking about. Like that famously, I think, had a difficult production cycle because the version of Unreal Engine that they were using previously was not like very performant on Switch, and so they had to wait for like a Unreal Engine update before they could actually do like the majority of the porting work and getting it to run smoothly.
It is interesting that Square Enix, well, obviously, developing exclusive games and like other sort of like legacy content that's showing up on Switch, that they're not really like their new cutting edge stuff is just like gleefully leaving the Nintendo platform behind, right? Like, Avengers came out this weekend, and like there wasn't even a split second where anyone thought it could possibly run on Switch. Even Final Fantasy 15, like the Pocket Edition is on Switch, but like it's not, the real game isn't coming. Final Fantasy 7 remake, same story there.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like actually a lot of Japanese studios are doing that. Like we've kind of seen Capcom have the same strategy, right?
Yeah,
Like
true.
Capcom has brought a lot of games from other generations to the Switch, but they haven't, other than like dabbling with the streaming version of Resident Evil 7 in Japan, they
Yeah.
haven't like really supported the Switch, which I think like makes sense, because as these like Japanese studios have left, a lot of those studios were supporting Nintendo with like the 3DS, like, but
Yeah.
they are not like big enough or equipped, or are just not interested in trying to also make like versions of their games for Nintendo platforms when the worldwide market for their games on other platforms are so big.
I was thinking, you bringing up the DS and 3DS right now reminds me of something that I was thinking about this week. That like, we talk a lot about how sort of combining the handheld and console market for Nintendo, sort of logically means that we would see more games on Switch than we saw on like either two separate platforms, like individually. But like, the gulf between developing a game that is visually acceptable on the 3DS and visually acceptable on the Switch is huge, right? Like, it's way bigger than like the difference between standard definition and high definition. Like, we're just talking like leagues and leagues different and requiring more detail. And I wonder if we haven't really seen the fruits of that, combination yet, just because it's taking a lot of teams' time to like spin up to that capacity. Yeah, it feels to me like we're just not quite there yet. And so like the same sort of idea applies to Square and Capcom, that they had a place for these sort of not low effort games, but like cheaper to produce games. Because now if they try to make a game like that, it also has to look really good.
I know. I do think that I think you're 100% right, because when the Switch was first coming out, I definitely believed that it was like, yeah, there's like a place for those mobile game, or not mobile, but like the handheld games to continue to exist, basically in the fidelity that they currently, were existing on the 3DS, but just bring them to Switch.
Yeah,
And
but it's just not true though. They have to look nicer.
Right, exactly. I mean, I feel like we see that with even with like Link's Awakening, right? Like it was
Sure.
a game that like looked really cute, looked really fun, but like people complained about the frame rate and like all that kind of stuff. Where it's just like the standard, I think, is higher on a home console, that those efforts like taking Samus Returns and putting it onto Switch as is just wouldn't fly.
Wouldn't be enough. Yeah. Yeah, well, because we know what the console can do. Like, you can't show us Breath of the Wild and then put a 3DS game on there. Like, it just doesn't work.
But could you, if you
I know,
priced
I
it
wanted to,
appropriately?
though.
I know.
I don't know.
Yeah.
If you price it, well, the thing is, I mean, I really don't know. If we had like an up-resed version of the Majora's Mask 3DS remake on Switch, would that pass muster? Would that look good enough? Could you even stand to look at it for a second if it were up on your TV? On your TV.
I feel where we may be actually seeing if this is true or not is with Bravely Default 2. It's been a long time since we've seen that game. It might have changed. It might have looked a lot better. The last time we saw it, that it didn't do anything for me.
Yeah, no, me neither.
Going back to this Kingdom Hearts piece, Nomura did add that he's a big fan of the Switch and he would like to develop something for it, but he's a busy guy. He didn't say that part. That's me editorializing. That's me saying I don't expect anything.
No, neither do I.
Speaking of Square Enix, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Remastered Edition launched at the end of last month and has kind of had a rocky reception. It had a lot of technical difficulties. I think like in New Zealand and Australia, like the servers just weren't working at all for a while. But it has continued to sell well. Like right now, when I was checking this morning, it's the best-selling game in the eShop in North America currently.
Yeah, wild.
But Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Remastered Edition director Araki Ryoma posted a message on the game's support page apologizing for some of the online issues that were prevalent during the first weeks the game was available. He also mapped out a series of fixes his team was going to undertake, really specifically calling out individual issues on like specific platforms. So really like kind of like a roadmap of the issues that they are looking to tackle. And also mentioned that they're looking at feedback in general. But is that, I mean, getting the game to function on a core level is like, yeah, great. That is makes sense for it to
do
be
that.
for it to be like the first steps. But a lot of the complaints seem to be like the whole structure of the online was not what I feel like the promise of this game when it was first announced is that Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles on GameCube is a multiplayer game, but is famously difficult to pull off because all of your friends have to have their own Game Boy Advances. Then you have to have the Game Boy Link cables that could plug into your GameCube. And so, wow, it was like, great, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles Remastered. None of those problems exist anymore. But what we found out is that there are just new problems.
New problems.
Yeah.
And a lot of those new problems seem to be at like the design level, right? Where you're taking on individual like dungeons with a team that you party up with, and then it disperses you again when you like go back to the town or whatever. I'm not totally sure how the game is structured, but every description I read about it made it sound like you had to like disband and reparty like over and over again, and that there was no easy way to find your friends to play with you and all that stuff. So it fixes are obviously nice, and like it's good that they're getting the game to work, but it seems like there's still it seems like more fundamentally broken. Is it weird that Square Enix launches this and Avengers within like weeks of each other, like two new huge multiplayer games that like require so much extra like server capacity?
Oh yeah, that's interesting. I wonder what the demand for Crystal Chronicles Remastered actually is.
It was too much at the at the time that it launched.
That's true. I mean, that's a good point. And final, well, I mean, I guess it just goes back to what you're always saying, which is that the cast of Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles is truly the Avengers of the Final Fantasy universe.
I'm always saying this.
And finally, another hardware patent is making the rounds. This one for a standalone Joy-Con. It was originally filed in May 2018 and officially registered in April of this year. It's exactly what's on the tin. It is like a standalone Joy-Con.
Yeah. So the image that they submitted as part of the patent filing looks like just sort of a rounded off left Joy-Con. Like it's got the proportions of the left Joy-Con, but instead of being like flat on one side, it just like that roundness carries all the way through. A couple interesting things to note, that there's no minus button depicted on the drawing. There's also no capture button. Those are the two buttons, like two sort of like special buttons that would appear on that remote. There are also no SL and SR buttons, like the little ones that would fit inside the kind of groove that snaps into the Switch. And then also there's no groove. So I mean, like the idea of a freestanding standalone Joy-Con is interesting, especially with things like the Switch Lite out there. But I don't know, Mark, what do you think about this?
Oh, that is interesting. I hadn't considered the Switch Lite. I wonder if it's just kind of like a cover your butt type of thing where they're like,
Yeah, sure.
hey, we have a patent for like the Joy-Con as it exists, but let's like patent, like the version that doesn't have rails. So that way somebody can't just like rip off that look and design.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, and like many patent filings, it doesn't mean that this is a product that we're actually going to see. But I don't know, man. We're gonna need Joy-Con 2.0 at some point here, with better reliability and whatnot. Especially if we're gonna get like a Switch 2.0 next year, whenever. I was just looking at Switches today, and like their availability is just absolutely like it's bad. You can't buy a Switch right now. And like I remember thinking that part of like the news that we were going to hear with this Mario thing was also going to tie back to like, and we have like a special edition like Mario bundle, and you can buy Switch again, but like you just can't.
Yeah. Actually, that reminded me. I saw somewhere somebody posted on Twitter or something that Super Mario 3D All Stars is already the second highest selling like game of 2020 on Amazon.
Wow.
Yeah.
And not they didn't lose out on any sales because it was still available to buy on the Wii U. So there you go.
No, not 3D World, 3D All Stars.
Oh, 3D All Stars.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
Yeah.
All right, Mark, let's get out of the news. All right, that is going to do it for this episode of Nintendo Cartridge Society. Remember, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. If you like the episode, you can share it on Facebook or Twitter or wherever you share stuff. We would greatly appreciate it if you did. You can follow us on Twitter. I'm at Patrick_Ellers. Mark is at MKE Mitchell, and the show is at Nin Cart Society. We also have a Facebook page, which is just Nintendo Cartridge Society. Olivia Duncan made our logo. Our theme music is provided by 8BitBetty. You can get more of his music by going to 8BitBetty.com or by listening right now. For my co-host, Mark Mitchell, this is Patrick Ellers saying, I think Dick is 29. I think Jason is 27. I think Tim is early college, like 18, 19. Steph is probably also about the same age. Cassie's a little bit older, probably like 22. And then Damien, of course, is 12. And thanks for listening.
I'm Kate Thompson.
And I'm Mark David Christensen. And together we host Crap, a Hellboy podcast.
The show dedicated to the half-demon hero brought forth by writer-artist Mike Mignola and published by Dark Horse Comics.
Each week we discuss everything Hellboy.
Plus his expanded universe with the BPRD, Abe Sapien, Lobster Johnson, and many more.
That's Crap, a Hellboy podcast on Campfire Media or wherever you get your podcasts.
Campfire.